1, 2, you hear the clock ticking, tick tock. You about to stop living, tick tock. I want you to remember me, tick tock. But the day don't have no memory. I'm coming. Nobody can stop me, nobody can hold me, nobody control me. I'm coming. I'm here to do my thing. I'm here to bring the pain. I'm never ever gonna change like Tropicana.
And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. Lee Versage, Zach McGibbon, and the wild, wonderful world of pro wrestling. Zachary, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Lee. Zachary is kind of throwing me off a little bit. Usually when I hear my full name, that means I'm in trouble. So am I in trouble for something here, Mr. Versage?
Let's just go with you're always probably in trouble. So just think about that as we go along here. And, you know, we got a ton to talk about. I'm actually really excited about today's show. I know that, you know, you probably sucked ass at the Broadhead Brewery remix wrestling. So I'm excited to hear about how bad you were there.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk. I thought AEW had an incredible show, and I'm excited to hear you crap on that. I actually thought Monday Night Raw and the ending of Monday Night Raw was really good last week with a new Intercontinental Champion, and you'll probably crap on that as well. So,
wow.
We're on as we sit here, there's only a couple hours left in September. And I know, you know, as fall comes about, Thanksgiving weighs you down and Halloween scares you, Zach. You're just the leprechaun. What was the leprechaun out on Saturday night? Let's begin there.
Oh boy.
Okay. Let's begin. Did we finally at Remix Wrestling, Broadhead Brewery, Saturday night, Orleans, Ontario, did we finally come to the conclusion that yes, you are Hornswoggle?
No, we did not. I thought we have had that conclusion for a long time that I am not Hornswoggle. I will say, though, when I was entering the building and doing my usual handshakes with the wrestlers, brother, that a couple of wrestlers were saying, oh, by the way, congratulations on the booking at Acclaim. I'm really happy for you that you were able to get that booking at Acclaim. And I had to clarify once again to a bunch of the wrestlers on the show, no, I am in fact not Hornswoggle. So, but there are wrestlers that did come up to me.
Was one of them Dexter Doom?
Dexter Doom was not one of those wrestlers. Oh. London Lightning was one of those wrestlers. Okay. The Hot Stepper as well congratulated me on the booking. My color commentator even congratulated me on the booking. So
I am, you know who one of my absolute favorites is now? I mean, London is just so passe. He's getting soft. He's doing. Tell me who his tag team partner is with those tag team championships that he struts around like a male model and like. You know what, London, you're a little bit passe right now. You have to do something like the Hot Stepper, like Mr. McRae is doing to put himself in the spotlight. You know what? He's my new favorite.
I figured he would be. Yeah, I figured he would be in the spotlight. London did go up to me and say, hey, you better put me over on the commentary, brother. I'll be listening in because the way we were seated, we were pretty close to the ring. So he could hear some of the commentary. So he's saying, hey, you better
London,
put me over.
Focus on your mat. Stop listening to the crowd, because you know what they say. If you listen to the crowd, suddenly you're going to be in the crowd. Right? Isn't that what they say, London? Stop worrying about what people have to say about you and start doing the things of people talking about you. Okay, London? Like the Hot Stepper does. Like Mr. McRae. I hope he goes with the gimmick of Mr. McRae.
Mr. McRae. He does call me Mr. McGibbon sometimes, which is kind of surprising. Like he was like, "Oh, Mr. McGibbon, good to see you."
He does?
Oh yeah. Even on one of the podcasts we did a while back when we were on the Blue station there for TSN, we had the chance. We did the short-lived little indie spotlight or indie extra, whatever it was called, and Hot Stepper was one of the guests, and he called me Mr. McGibbon on that show too.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Reach out to Mr. McRae.
Okay.
Let's get him back on the program, because I think he's going to be in the spotlight coming up soon. in C4. Surprised he didn't jam a fork on Junior's head when he was there protecting him in the ring from Evil Uno. Should have just jammed a fork in his head.
I mean, the opportunity was there.
It was, but he's got a really cool tag team that everybody like. Clap them tacos. Is that true?
That is the tag team name for Junior Benito, and one Johnny Taco was his tag team partner.
Yeah. I need Mr. McRae back on the show because I think he's being overlooked. I think there's a lot of people taking advantage of Mr. McRae, and just like MVP did on Dynamite, I'm going to get you to hand Mr. McRae my card and say, if he wants to get into some business, he wants true people to handle his business, you should give him my card, Zach.
Wow.
Okay?
I like
it.
That's
how I feel about Mr. McRae, my favorite wrestler right now.
How about that?
The Hot Stepper.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. The Hot Stepper, he came up to me and congratulated me on the booking. So he's part of the people that incorrectly assume I am Hornswoggle. So
how was the show on Saturday?
The show was a lot of fun. It was really cool. Another great crowd at Broadhead Brewery for Remix Wrestling's Broadhead Party Hard, based off the Andrew WK song. It was a lot of fun. The opening match of Psycho Mike versus Giant Tiger was unlike anything I have ever called in professional wrestling. It's a match you have to see to believe. I was actually doing the commentary not only with my usual color commentator, the Butterfly, but also Puff joined me on commentary for the first match.
They finally got some intelligence on broadcast. That's good.
So Puff joined us to call the match, and we were also joined later on the show by Sugar Shane Pinto, the manager for one Drea Mitchell. And in the main event, the tag team of Project 8100, their manager, Raja Ali, also joined us on commentary. So we had a lot of run-ins on the commentary booth over the weekend on the show, but it was a lot of fun.
Do you know when people run into commentary too much? As you said, a lot of run-ins. That's when commentators let them.
We should have said, no, shoo, get out of here. We're trying to call a match here, brother. Like our version of calling a match, obviously. You know,
I wouldn't say, shoe would not be the right word that I would use, but you know what I'm talking about. So I'm glad you had a good time and a very successful show. What was the main event?
Main event was that Clap Them Tacos versus Project 8100 match. It was a brawl around Broadhead Brewery where if Clap Them Tacos lost, they could no longer tag team in Remix Wrestling. But if Project 8100 lost, they would never appear for Remix Wrestling ever again.
Wow.
So it was a high stakes main event. I will not reveal the results. It will be up on IWTV in the coming days, but it was quite the main event and a lot of other great matches as well. We had our rematch of, we were talking about the Hot Stepper earlier. He was taking on Mark Wheeler and they had a tremendous match as well. Those two just continue to have great in-ring chemistry with each other, and they've just been showing it time and time again in the ring. There was also Tarek against Myung-Jae Lee, which Myung-Jae Lee took a beating in that match. But overall, really fun show. I think a lot of people will be talking about the Psycho Mike Giant Tiger match because, you know, if you're a big comedy wrestling guy, this will be the match for you. Is what I will say for that opening match. It's gotten a lot of buzz on that sense, but in terms of the in-ring quality and the matches on the card, really fun card. Always enjoy going to Remix. And again, I mentioned this each show. Obviously, I work for Remix and I do a bunch of their shows, but I wouldn't be doing those shows if I didn't think they were a lot of fun. And they really are a lot of fun. It's really growing in popularity. It's really cool to see. There's people that are starting to return back to Remix shows and being reoccurring, fans of the shows, which is really cool. I believe we had about 230 to 250 people in the crowd for this edition of the Remix show. So that was really cool. And again, I think I mentioned this last show, but you know, you've been to the Broadhead Brewery there, Lee. Having 250 people in that building is quite a lot, especially with how packed it can be. So it made for a really loud and fun environment. Just a really fun show. And I'm really looking forward to when it hits on IWTV, because I think people will have a real good time with it.
I love that. I love everything about that. That's fantastic. So let's get into Dynamite Grand Slam. Arthur Ashe, because we haven't really talked about it yet. And I'm going to tell you, Zach, I'm hopeful because I think because I care more about AEW, I'm a little bit more in the roller coaster, that when they do well, I'm like, oh yeah, they're back. Oh, here they are. Look what they're going to, like, this is the beginning of something. And then I like, oh boy. Then I get,
yes.
Then I get let down a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, how could they blow this? And I find myself more emotional because I care about it. So the ups and downs mean a little bit more to me than they do, say, in the WWE, where if it's a down, it's just like, whatever. That's what they always do. And then, I think they had some good ups, but I actually loved this show. I loved a lot about this show. So, it starts off with Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. And look, Nigel McGuinness is still not, and I don't think ever will be, right back to where he was. And, I hope, I have no idea what's going to happen in the future here for Nigel McGuinness. The match was a little slow. You could see his footwork just not at the same pace as Danielson. Some of the things that he did seemed very telegraphed compared to the way that Danielson works, but he's also in there with one of the best in the world. I just thought you could see the differences, but I didn't care. As a wrestling fan and as a fan of where I know that rivalry brought wrestling from a company that not a ton of people knew about, Ring of Honor, to what it did to a lot of wrestling fans, I did not care. I wanted to see them in the ring. They didn't do anything crazy or stupid. It was a very classic match. You had, Nigel say thank you at the end. And then, I thought pretty quickly, they transitioned out of, and Christian comes down and all kinds of, you got Claudio and Pac there, and just a lot of things going on in that. But I really liked this first segment, and I thought it was great for McGuinness, great for Danielson, and I thought it was a pretty good thing for the company. I just really liked the first 20 minutes of the show.
Oh yeah, I love this. I will echo a lot of what you said in terms of the show overall as well. I love the show as well. I was a lot of the same thoughts. I'm like, oh my God, we're so back. AEW is so back. That first match, it's like, yes, we're so back. Because I agree with you. It was like, this was not the peak Danielson McGuinness matches you would see in Ring of Honor in the mid 2000s. And I kind of have put that into the back burner and know that we're probably never going to get those kind of matches again. But we still got a really good match here, I thought, especially considering how long Nigel McGuinness has been away from the ring. I know he was in, at All In as part of that Casino Gauntlet. But in terms of an actual one-on-one match, I thought he looked really good considering. And yes, there were definitely moments where he was slower, but we got to remember with Nigel, he's 48. Like he's older than you think. And so he's a guy that considering, the shape that he was in and how he was able to go with Danielson, I thought they had a really fun match here. And they did some nice little callback spots as well. They teased that ring post spot, which is, the prime visual that you can go back to with those McGuinness Danielson matches back in Ring of Honor. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. Crowd was into this as well. The work was very, very good. Real strong way to start off the show. And then, as you mentioned, it's kind of the perfect synopsis of AEW right now. They have these moments where it's like, yes, this is what AEW could be. This is what AEW could be as an alternative. They could be different. They could have matches like this on their TV. And then they do the WWE thing of teasing the cash-in angle. And then of all people to get involved, Kip Sabian comes out to, block the pen. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm glad the 27 people back there decided, yep, this is what we need to have on our show. But, that aside, it did bother me a little bit. But the match, what we got beforehand, was tremendous. And, we could beat a dead horse here and talk about the Darby stuff and how it makes him look silly. And it does. But we beat that horse, over the last couple of weeks.
I'm still going to beat it in a second.
Oh, yeah. We'll still mention it, obviously. But what we got here is a package. I still loved it in this opening match.
Yeah, I really did. And I feel two ways. Kip Sabian coming out in the middle of some main event program. I'm like, what? But
and for stopping a pen being written down, like I guess that is the thing that's gonna block you from a title shot now, is that he's got to write it on the stage so that he could cash in his title shot. But
yeah, I thought it was just you could give it to somebody and you would have already signed it. And number two, you would think of all people that'd be smart enough to have 2 or 3 pens, it would be Christian.
Yes.
So yeah, but the other part of me is like, well, if you're going to get Kip Sabian, who I always thought was a little bit underrated and underutilized, if you're going to get him back in, good. Throw him up with the big boys for a little bit and then see what he does. I'm not saying keep him up there. I'm just saying to get him back, for people to remember who he is and stuff. I understand at least the logic of doing that. Because you can't just start everybody right from the bottom and work their way up. And Kip Sabian's 18-1 in his last 19, and you just can't do that with everybody. So we'll see where they go. I didn't like it, but I understood it.
Yep.
But the whole package was good, and I love Christian still being involved. I actually think at some point he's going to win the AEW World Title.
Oh, probably.
And I think that. Somebody put it, and I can't remember who it was, saying Christian is what we all thought MJF was going to be.
And
I'm like, okay, I still think MJF was there and probably can get back there again without too much of a problem. I got a lot of faith in that guy, but I don't disagree with the sentiment of everything you kind of dislike about MJF and the way that Christian is doing this right now. I think he's the most hated guy in that company right now, which he shouldn't be, but he is. And it's certainly an argument. And I wouldn't be afraid to put this world title on him. Now, in saying that, I just saw something come across as we were talking about this, is that I saw that Killswitch was in the hospital with Luchasaurus. Killswitch his wife found him a couple days ago, collapsed on the floor, and blood oxygen level was below 80%. He had pneumonia in his lungs.
I'm just seeing this now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that his recovery he's very lucky that he was found at that time, because it could have been much, much worse if he wasn't found at that point. So we'll see what they do with Christian, with the fact that I don't think, and we wish the best certainly for Luchasaurus and Killswitch to just get healthy as a person.
Yeah.
So that's first and foremost. But I don't know if that does anything to the push of Christian, or whether they bring somebody else in. If they were going to anyway, now would be the time. My whole point is, I think Christian's actually going to win the world title at some point. It doesn't have to be a long run, but I think he's put himself in that position. So then right after that, or I don't know the exact order, you can, as you usually do, you can correct me when I'm wrong.
Okay.
But I loved the Hook coming out, beating Roderick Strong, beating him, Strong's in control. just, pun intended, hooking in.
Very nice.
Yeah. Hooking in the claws and getting the submission, Strong getting up, respecting him, shaking his hand, leaving, and then Hook retiring the FTW belt and giving it back to his father. I actually thought this was all perfect. Like I couldn't have written or dreamed it up any better. Get a really good, credible opponent in Roderick Strong, beat him clean, have Strong be respectful, Hook go over. You're actually going to put him over more that he doesn't have that title, and he was the guy that retired it. I thought you got so many titles going around right now. You don't need this title. And I thought it was a limit on Hook. That's why I never thought he'd win it back in the first place, because it was just limiting him.
Yeah.
And the fact that he won it back to just sort of give it up so he's not limited anymore, maybe was even better. I didn't see that coming. But to do it in Queens and Flushing Meadow, like right where, almost where that Taz is from and he's from, and the Elks Lodge, and they mentioned it a couple of times, that's only 3 miles away where the FTW title was created in ECW. There's nothing wrong with this segment. Nothing.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I've said this about Roderick Strong before, but if I were to start a professional wrestling promotion and I had lots of money to spend, like Tony Khan levels of money to spend, one of the wrestlers I want to make sure I have on my roster is Roderick Strong.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy that, he's not the most charismatic guy. He's not the greatest promo, but he's a guy I want out there in matches like this with Hook. He's just a guy you could go in there and just rely on to have a good match. And you can put him in different spots. You could put him in the mid-card, battling for some of your mid-card titles. You could elevate him at some points to be a challenger for a world champion, because he's going to go out there and have a great match. So I love Roderick Strong. He's one of my favorite wrestlers in terms of just watching him work, because he's just so consistently good. And he's a great opponent for a guy like Hook, a guy who's still kind of developing and growing as a performer. And so what they did here, I thought, was really strong. And like what you mentioned too in the post match, retiring the FTW belt and having it be in New York and giving it to his father was a great little moment. And like what you said, the FTW title has certainly run its course at this point. I don't think there's anything else that they could really do with that belt. And so I think this was a smart way to keep Hook strong without having to have him lose that belt or anything like that. Yep. You get a nice moment out of it, and you got what you needed out of the FTW title. You not only put it on Hook, but you also had it as a way to establish Ricky Starks on the come up, and also part of that Team Taz unit. So it did its job, what it needed to do. Was it the greatest all the time? No. But in terms of certain aspects of what it was intended to do, to try to establish some guys right away in the card, not as a main event guy, but somebody that you recognize right away on the card and say, okay, this is a guy that they want to set up for the future. It did its purpose. And I thought they did a nice job with the send off as well.
You mentioned Roderick Strong. He reminds me of, I know that you know this wrestler very well, but when I was watching him like weekly, I was thinking, man, this guy's really good. I wish he could talk, but man, he's really good. I could watch this guy wrestle all day long. And that's Dean Malenko.
Yep.
Roderick Strong reminds me of a more charismatic Dean Malenko. Now, Roderick Strong isn't the most charismatic wrestler I've ever seen, but Dean Malenko was like the ultimate guy in the ring that you could just do anything with. Like you could put him in tag teams, you could put him up against bigger guys, you could put him up against, jobbers and have him teach them. You could do anything with that guy. And Roderick Strong reminds me of that, certainly more charismatic than Dean Malenko, but not the most charismatic guy in the world. As you said, I got all the respect in the world. He would be one of my first choices, Roderick Strong, because he's just such a company guy. And I think when you go from the guy can go out and, bring Hook along and give him some credibility to end that title. He can be part of an incredible tag team, as he's shown in the past, with Kyle O'Reilly. And then when you put him in even against guys like London Lightning, right? When we talked to London, I mean, London saying I've never got hit so hard in my life, and I've never really learned as much as I've learned when I wrestled Roderick Strong. And that's what that's a true team company guy. Mm-hmm. I want that guy on my roster. And I want to see people like that elevated personally as a fan, because you understand all the things that person can do.
Yep.
So
and similar to what going off of that Dean Malenko point as well, he's a guy that like what they were doing with Hook with Roderick Strong, trying to continue to establish him and get him better in the ring. One of the things that Dean Malenko was so strong at was when they were bringing in the lucha guys like your Rey Mysterios and your Psychosis and whatnot. He was that tremendous base that could work around those guys and make them look even better as stars, because he could do those big moves that those lucha guys were doing at the time that wasn't seen on American TV at that point. And so, yeah, I think that's a great comparison, because, you know, both are guys that like tremendous in the ring, both incredibly reliable. You know, when they go out there, they're going to work their asses off, and they're going to put company guys as well. Just guys you want on your roster. You obviously, you know, you want your big main event stars, you want your guys that draw money, but you still need to fill out your undercard. And Roderick Strong, similar to Dean Malenko, is one of those guys you want on your undercard, because you know he's going to be reliable and going to put in great performances.
As we're witnessing with the Dallas Cowboys, not to get too deep, you know, into the division leading Cowboys, but doesn't feel like they're tied to the lead of the division, does it?
It's crazy.
But they got a lot of stars, but do they have as many foundational pieces? Do they have, you know, the meat of the order of guys that are just going in there and clicking off downs and making sure that their job gets done? No, they don't. They got a lot of, to me, they got a lot of perimeter talent, but they don't have kind of the workhorses, the guys that you need necessarily, and Roderick Strong is one of those. So I just thought this segment was perfect, and it made Hook look even stronger.
Yep.
MVP comes out. Prince Nana. And I thought this was wonderful, because I thought there was a couple of things or a couple of ways that you could go. I want you to tell me what you thought of basically MVP coming out, being a surprise on the show, comes out and tells Nana that Nana's not doing his job. And if he wants, you know, some real advice, here's my card. And I think a lot of people got really excited really quickly, because I think there's a couple of ways that this could go, but it certainly will revolve around MVP, his group, whoever that might be, and whether or not that involves for or against Swerve Strickland.
Yeah, I was somebody when it was being reported that, you know, MVP and Bobby Lashley were guys that were being considered to join AEW. I was thinking at that time, man, like, what are those guys going to do in that company that somebody else on your roster can't already do right now for you? When this promo happened, I realized, oh, you've got a guy who could talk, an MVP, in a different environment like this. I thought MVP really impressed me with his promo here. And he you know, set the tone. He went after Nana, and now looks like he's going to get involved with the Swerve Strickland stuff. You best believe that Bobby Lashley will be following along pretty soon. There's somebody apparently zoomed in on the card that was given into Prince Nana, and apparently on the card it said Hurt Syndicate. So that might be the new name of this offshoot of the Hurt business from WWE. But I thought this was a tremendous promo from MVP. He really impressed me in terms of what he was able to get across, and setting the seeds on the Swerve Strickland story, so that once Swerve comes back from his time off, he's got an already storyline that's put in place for him when he comes back. So I thought this was a home run segment. I thought here there was a lot of those on this show where they really got what they wanted across really well, and MVP really impressed me. And I was somebody that was low on MVP and Bobby Lashley coming in, because I was wondering, what are those guys going to do that a guy on your roster can't do already? But MVP really impressed me with this promo, and now I'm really intrigued to see where they go with Swerve Strickland.
Okay, so first guess, do you think that this is I hope they first of all made a card to swerve people who zoomed in on the card
Yes.
to look at the Hurt Syndicate and think that that's the new thing. I hope they go another way with that.
Yeah.
And they did that just to get people talking about the Hurt Syndicate instead of actually going with that.
Yeah.
I hope they're smart enough to do that. But regardless of whether they are or not, do you think that this ends up as Swerve against this group or Swerve with this group?
The way that it was kind of going here before he left, it seemed like Swerve was starting to inch back more and more to that heel side. So I actually think I might be the odd man out here, but I actually think he will be a part of this new Hurt Syndicate or whatever group name they're going to call here with MVP and Bobby Lashley. And I think they'll draw this out. I think they'll do it over a couple of weeks. I don't think he's going to show up and be like, I am joining the Hurt Syndicate or something like that. I think they'll play this out. I think he'll go back. He'll be with Nana. But I think over time, they've been building an eventual return to a heel form for Swerve Strickland because of the stuff with Hangman Page. So I think he will eventually join MVP's group. Whether that be before the end of 2024, I could potentially see that, but I think they've got something they could stretch out here. But to answer your question, yes, I do think he will eventually join MVP's group.
I do too. Yeah, I don't think you're the odd man out here because number one, I think you can explain that Swerve is tired of not having the protection that he needs. From a guy like Adam Page, what's happened to his home, what's happened to his championship, what happened to him in the cage. He rules in a different way and needs a little bit more protection and trust and he can really be the leader of a group, or the lead wrestler of a group. And, if MVP is doing the talking. And then second of all, I think Swerve really cares about the prominence of African Americans in the sport. And we've seen at different times, whether it's been the Nation of Domination or what Mark Henry has done. I think Swerve Strickland cares a lot about it. I think AEW, because of Swerve Strickland, cares a lot about it. And I think that they're going to do something to bring some more prominence to the African American watching or wanting to be a part of AEW. I think if you're Swerve Strickland is a very charismatic. We're talking about charisma and sort of the it factor, and Swerve Strickland has that. And now what is he going to do with it? Who's he going to lead? Who is he going to bring along? And to me, there's a segment of the fan base that, wants to cheer for this guy. And I think if he brings along in a way of getting his views and some of the things that he wants across from the African-American community, and to be able to do it in a sense of that he's providing the protection, I honestly think the sky's the limit for that group. And I wouldn't, instead of like the easy route, to me would be sort of turning on Nana and sort of joining MVP. I think he brings Nana along. And everyone is there. So I just think there's a lot of ways they could go. As you said, I don't think they're going to do this right away, but I thought this was a fantastic segment. I thought it was almost as good as one of the best tag team matches I've watched on television in a very long time. And I saw, I think it was Matt Jackson. I could be wrong. Hopefully, because I hope Nick wasn't talking to anybody. And it was Matt doing all the talking for the Young Bucks. Mm-hmm. But I saw Matt Jackson talking about a couple of things. Number one, about how great FTR is behind the scenes and how kind of incredible, of a team they are, and how lucky the Bucks have been to have them as a rivalry and an opponent. but basically talking about Will Ospreay and them giving him advice earlier in your career to kind of, you know, that he wasn't quite there yet, but they could see it. And now it's not even close. Like they're like, Will Ospreay is the best professional wrestler in the world. And I believe the quote is, I don't even think it's close. And I don't disagree. I mean, there's other people that can be considered, but I think what Will Ospreay is doing is it doesn't matter where you put him. You can put him in casino gauntlet matches or international championship matches, or doesn't matter who you pair him up with. You want to be in a tag team? Sure. You want to do it solo? Sure. He is what people are going to pay to see. And to have him and Kyle Fletcher against the Bucks, I thought it was incredible. When you're watching a match and you're like, I don't really even care how it ends because it's just so good, I want it to keep going. That's how I felt about this match. So good for Kyle Fletcher, to me, to kind of not keep up. I know he's a great wrestler, but I don't, of the four with the Bucks and Ospreay and Fletcher, he's fourth, right?
Yep.
With kind of just where he is in his career. I thought he kept up very nicely. And it just shows that you can do anything with Ospreay.
Yeah.
And because of that, the Bucks look like they were trying, which I don't always see. I see sometimes. I don't always see. But it's amazing to me how Ospreay can not only bring the level up of Fletcher, but I thought he brought the Bucks up as well. The Bucks are an incredible team. I'm not trying to say they're not. I'm just saying when you're in the ring against Will Ospreay, you have to pick up your game because he's the best wrestler on the planet. And then I thought they did. I thought this was great. I'm a little bit, I don't care about the screwdriver in the Don Callis story. I think it's like so a year and a half ago, but sure, they want to go down that road. I don't really care. If I get to watch Will Ospreay on my screen involved with other really good wrestlers, I'm very happy. I thought this was amazing.
Yeah, I can't think of another tag match on TV that was better than this. I'd have to really dig deep into this past year to find a tag match that could be comparable. I thought this was an incredible tag team match, as you mentioned. And I think the rumors of the Young Bucks' demise may have been greatly exaggerated here, Lee. And I was one of those people that was kind of wondering, maybe the best of the Bucks are behind us. They've settled into this gimmick, and you're still going to get good performances from them because they are an experienced tag team and they know how to work in pro wrestling matches and all that. But boy, I thought they showed out here. And Kyle Fletcher, man, like I know you were mentioning, he's very clearly the fourth, still a great wrestler, but I still think too, that guy has such a high ceiling of where he could go. Like I could totally see Fletcher if the stars align correctly and his development goes the right way, I could see him on the path where he's up in that upper echelon of an in-ring talent, because some of the matches he's had at this stage of his career with guys like Ospreay, Takeshita, whatnot, there are other guys that have had matches with those guys that haven't been as good as Fletcher's matches have been. So the sky is the limit for Fletcher. I'm really excited to see where he goes from there. And of course, I mean, what else can we really say about Will Ospreay at this point? Like, the guy is the best wrestler in the world. The only one close is Danielson. But Ospreay continuously, ever since he's joined AEW and even going back into New Japan, just has been consistently delivering in the ring and showing why he's one of, if not the best wrestler in the world. In this case, this year, I think he is the best wrestler in the world. And they showed out here with his tag team match. And yes, you had the screwdriver stuff, and they are setting up stuff for, what will Ospreay do with the Don Callis family and where that will go. But as a match itself, man, this was an incredible match. Again, I would have to look back to see if there's a tag team match on TV that was better than this, because right now I'm thinking, man, this is easily the best, maybe even the best match on TV I've seen this year. It's certainly in the conversation. Definitely the best tag match I've seen on TV. It was great.
Yeah, I would agree. So the hits just keep on coming, right? And then look, we can get to the end, and I'm still I just don't understand how they've got here. How they had such a great card, and then Moxley and Darby was good. It just didn't make sense why Darby was in the match in the beginning, and then Moxley beats him. I don't know. I don't love how they got here, but as an AEW fan, I'm actually going to pull a Zach McGibbon here. I'm going to ignore it because I'm going to get Moxley and Danielson, and I'm going to like it. So how they got there is really stupid to me. I didn't love the bag, but I get the bag, but I didn't love it. But then how he suddenly became the number one contender by telling the guy to put his shot on the line. The guy's like, okay, why? But when we get Danielson and Moxley, I will be sitting on the edge of my seat. So I don't know. How do I deal with that as a fan? I'm asking you.
Well, I think we acknowledge what happened in the story, and we say, okay, this didn't go quite the way we wanted it to go in terms of the build, but the way that we're going to get to this ending here of Moxley and Danielson, I think is still something to look forward to, and it creates this interesting dynamic of where they could go with that match. I echo a lot of what you say about Darby Allin. I'm much higher on the bag angle and some of the other stuff that Moxley has been doing than you are, because I love that angle that they did at the pay-per-view. And initially I was understanding what they were doing before they announced the McGuinness Danielson stuff later in the show. Initially I understood what they were going for, and I could buy into it. But then it just kind of fell off a cliff once Nigel challenged Danielson for the show. The match we got here in of itself, it was kind of what you would expect in terms of Darby Allin taking a bunch of bumps, and they want to establish Jon Moxley as this menacing character. And I got to say this about Moxley, just character wise, I find this character very interesting where he could go. This heel work, because he's not your stereotypical heel. He's a lot more patient when he's a heel, and it makes it a lot more engaging. So having said all that, and this might be weird considering some of the bumps that Darby took, because he took the classic throwing himself into the ring post and launching himself like a lawn dart, and some of the bumps that he took. But I actually thought maybe they could have done a little bit more in terms of beating the crap out of Darby to really get Moxley over as this menacing heel that's is sadistic and is taking his time in terms of his punishment. But this got the job done and what it needed to do to put over Moxley as this killer heel and going to challenge Danielson for the title at Wrestle Dream. And I thought it did everything it needed to do to get it over. I was hoping for a little bit more with these two in terms of really pushing that angle over, but what we got here, it got the job done. I was happy with what they were able to do. Yes, there's stuff going into the story that didn't make a lot of sense, but we are going to get Moxley and Danielson, and it makes an interesting dynamic because I got to think the way that they're pushing this act right now, like I have to think Moxley's winning the belt at Wrestle Dream, but that could be a conversation for another day. But in terms of this main event, I thought they did a strong job here in getting this character of Jon Moxley over.
Yeah, we will talk about that in later shows. I'm not so sure, but I'm not sure. It doesn't mean I don't think he's going to. It just means I think it needs to be fleshed out here a little bit, and we will do that because that's what we do.
That's right.
Here on This Is Wrestling.
Well, one of the things too, we forgot to mention one of the matches on the show. Were you not sitting down on your seat with your popcorn watching the Mariah May Yuka Sakazaki match?
There's a reason, Zach, I skipped over it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we got everything in, on the Grand Slam review.
Yeah, I know. Let's talk. A lot of good things happened on this show. A lot of good things.
Yes.
There's.
Let's just say, I'll say it. I'm not feeling this Mariah May Mina Shirakawa story whatsoever. I'm willing to say it.
No, I'm not.
You're not?
I'm not feeling it. Nope. I wish they had a better plan for her once she won the title, because this doesn't seem like a great one to me.
Yeah.
So we'll see where they go.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the belt kind of being off of Tony Storm. I want to see a better direction.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get that. I'm still holding out hope.
Yeah, I'm going to be lower on this. I don't think Mariah May is somebody that can carry a program. Like right now, the only thing that makes her interesting in this company with this belt is Tony Storm. The other stuff that they're trying to do with Mina Shirakawa, like I know they put that in the story, and like I want to get invested in the story, but I really don't think there's that much depth in this when it comes to the story building. And that could also be a factor against Mariah May. But I got to tell you, too, with some of the promos that Mariah May has put together in the last couple of weeks, like she really has not impressed me that much in terms of her push. Like, has the story been tremendous? No, but I don't think she's really carried the ball either in terms of taking that mental.
I would agree with that.
So I want to see more from Mariah May. And I'm looking at the scope as like, okay, you're the women's champion. You're the top woman in the company, so I'm going to, critique you as such.
Yep.
And right now, I just don't see it when it comes to her being one of the top women in the company. I think there are other women. We talked about Chris Statlander. I see her as somebody that could be in that main event mix. Obviously, however I feel about the gimmick, I do feel Tony Storm is somebody that could be in that main event mix. Willow Nightingale as well. And there's good women's talents here. Obviously, Mercedes Moné I should throw in there as well.
Well, I was going to say, like, at some point, are you going to involve her in the world title? Or
I feel like you have to pretty soon.
I would agree.
So it would make it a lot more interesting here. So it's funny because our champion, Trevor Struthers, is a big fan of this because he's watched a bunch of the Joshi stuff. So he's really enjoying the Mariah May stuff and whatnot. And I'm just having a hard time breaking to him, being like, man, I don't think this is working, because the crowd wasn't very much into this either. And part of that, too, is because there really wasn't that much doubt of Yuka Sakazaki being able to beat Mariah May for the women's title. Mm-hmm. So that also takes that away. But I just don't think the story has that much depth. I think it's just a pretty... I really don't think it's that amazing of a story, and I think fans are reacting to it that way.
Yeah, I actually really concur with what you're saying here, and especially to the point of when you're the champion, and I've been hard on other people like this too. When you're the champion, we're going to treat you like the champion. You should be able, like, I don't want to see before where people are champions when Karrion Kross was the NXT champion. And it's like, cool entrance. He's got all the bells, all the whistles. But when he gets in the ring, he needs to be carried by other people. I don't want to see that. I want to see the champion carry people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's up to Mariah May if she's the champion to carry other people. So is that going to happen? Well, we'll see. It's not off to a great start.
Yeah.
So that's a long AEW Dynamite Grand Slam recap. I do want to jump over because I do think it's noteworthy here of what the WWE did, putting the Intercontinental title on Jey Uso, beating Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship last Monday on Raw. It's again one of those things. I got some negative things to say about the WWE. I have no idea what they're doing with SmackDown when it comes to why I'm suddenly watching best of 7 when it wasn't announced as a best of 7, but somehow Andrade and Carmella are just out there every week wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why every SmackDown now just somehow has a variation of either Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, or Cody Rhodes going out, and then them coming out. It's like, hey, we're going to send Randy Orton out. He's going to talk, but then Kevin Owens going to come out, and then Cody Rhodes come out. But don't worry, the Bloodline will be out. And then, like, okay, I guess. I'm having a hard time fall and all that, but I think it's a great move by the WWE to put the Intercontinental title on Jey Uso. You just have to watch the reaction of the crowd and see how much people are into him, and they want him to be a bigger part of the show. And whether you think he's improved or not, he certainly has separated himself as an individual from the rest of the bloodline under Roman Reigns into his own guy. And I don't yeet very often.
I don't yeet at all.
Okay. I a little bit for me, but not very often.
Yeah.
But a whole lot of people do.
Yep.
And I just think this is the right move at the right time. And sometimes you hit on like, hey, we need to do this, and we need to do this now. And they did it. And I think if you watch that match and watch the reaction of the people, I think it's unfortunate that, a show ran a little bit late where he didn't really have a lot of time on camera to celebrate afterwards. I thought that was a bit of a mistake, because you don't need to run a show that long when that's your crowning moment. You need to give that moment and let it breathe.
Mm-hmm.
But he barely got the title and sort of got out to the crowd before they faded to black. I thought that was the only mistake in this. Other than that, I thought this was really, really well done. And for the WWE to actually listen and put the belt on Uso at this point, I just think he's one of the most popular guys you got going on. And just watch the reaction at the end. And I love that about professional wrestling.
Yep. And that's something that we've talked about here on this show. Sometimes you got to strike while the iron is hot. And they went with that. I'm not a Jey Uso guy. I really don't think he stepped up that much in the ring as a singles guy to be somebody that you could take seriously in a main event spot, especially despite them calling him main event Jey Uso. Like, that's how hard they're trying to push him. They literally are calling him the main event. But like what you said, however I may feel about him, he is over. And people love doing the entrance with him. And I could also look at this as well as how they kind of view Braun Breaker, because he hasn't really stood out on the main roster, for me anyway, to really separate himself out from the pack and be this guy that you hear about as, oh, he could be a future WrestleMania main eventer, right? He could be somebody that could challenge for the world championship. So having this happen on an episode of Raw, where Uso beating Braun Breaker for the title, we'll see where they go with Braun Breaker from here. If they have him, have a rematch for the title and he gets it back at a PLE at some point. But it's like what you said. Sometimes you got to strike while the iron is hot. And Uso is somebody that continues to get big crowd reactions. People love his songs. They go quiet as all hell once the match actually starts. But in terms of his character and the involvement with the bloodline and the way that has shaped this company as well over the last little bit, they made a moment out of this. And we know how WWE is, where they love their moments. It's like what I said. I'm trying to be nice here, Lee. I'm really trying to be nice. But it's like what I've said before. They book for TikToks and Instagram Reels. And that is a nice little moment on a TikTok or Instagram Reel, seeing Jey Uso winning the belt over Braun Breaker and having a loud crowd behind him when it comes to that. So, it makes sense. We'll see where they go from here in terms of if they book a rematch for Bad Blood or what the next step is. But Jey Uso getting a big singles win for his career.
Yeah, I would imagine that they would go right back to this. And I'm super interested in what they do with Braun Breaker here, because I don't think he's getting that title back.
Mm-hmm.
Or I wouldn't be putting the title. How about that? I shouldn't say he won't be. I'll say I wouldn't be doing it. And with that crowd reaction and the way that people want to get behind and the merch that he's sold and really the different demographics that he, he's got little kids and he certainly has adults as well following him and wanting him to do well. I think this is the time to just leave it on Jey Uso for a while and run with it, right? So I wouldn't be putting it back on Braun Breaker. And if they don't, what do they do with him? And how they handle him. But look, crap on the WWE a lot, and I just every time I turn SmackDown on, it's like, how many commercial breaks are in this Andrade Carmelo match?
Yeah. And remember what I was saying too with the move to Netflix, how, Raw is going to be moving. This is the final 3-hour Raw as we're recording tonight before they move to 2 hours for the next couple of months before they move to Netflix. Well, now there's reporting that SmackDown might go to 3 hours once they go to USA. So enjoy it while it lasts, because we might not have not only one, but 2 potential programs that could be 3 hours each and every week on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I won't say I'm kind of excited for Raw to get to Netflix to see what they're going to be able to do and can they pique my interest a little bit more. But what's not piquing my interest is anything to do with what's going on with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens and the other guys on the bloodline who are just terrible. If it's not Jacob Fatu.
Yeah.
Even when Solo speaks, I just don't believe him.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I know he's trying and I'm not criticizing him. He doesn't have that it factor for me that when he comes out and he grabs a microphone and he speaks as the real tribal chief, I'm just like, what? No, you're not. Like, I don't believe him. And so I think that's an issue. And I think everyone knows it that's watching, that maybe we're wrestling fans before. Are they going to screw up and push Jacob Fatu too fast so that they're going to ruin him, or are they going to let him marinate because he's a real star? And can they bring him out to be in the forefront here? I want to see that. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, but I'm really not interested in seeing, and I keep seeing this, could it possibly be Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton at WrestleMania? I'm like, what? Now The Rock's going to wrestle Roman and I'm going to get Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Like, oh, somebody stop me, please.
Yes. Well, we could get the other option of Randy Orton versus John Cena, and let's reignite that feud.
Yeah, let's.
Took over 2009, Lee. That's the feud of 2009 right there.
No, but look, you got to look at those things in positive ways, and this is the positive way that I would look at it. I respect a lot and hustle, and I'm very loyal to John and all those things, but I'm not interested in watching John Cena on my wrestling television screen anymore.
No.
I'm also not interested in watching Randy Orton on my wrestling screen anymore. So if they're in the same feud and I can just turn away for 15 minutes and come back and both of them won't be on, maybe that's okay.
Yeah. Well, just know that you're going to get a bunch of social media posts if that match does happen. Like, no matter the match quality, they'll be like, oh, it's like I'm 14 again. It's like I'm 8 again. And it's just a nostalgia match.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and remain positive as we end this and say, I was happy. It's not like I thought this is the greatest match in the world. I just think sometimes you have to listen to your audience and strike while the iron's hot and all that stuff. And I thought the WWE did that with Jey Uso in the Intercontinental title. It makes sense. As Sammy had it, he lost it to Braun, and then Jay gets it back from Braun. This guy, whether we think he's great in the ring or not, is one of the most beloved sort of favorite people in the company when it comes to the fans. The fans love this guy. And if fans love him, you need to do something with him to make him in a prominent position where he's not just, somebody's lackey or chasing something. Like, do something real with him. And I was glad to see that they did that. That's all I'm saying. I thought the WWE did a good job in that regard, and I'm going to give them some credit. And that's where I'm going to end before I have more negative things to say.
You're a better man than I, because I was really trying to be nice. I really do try to be nice, but then you think of some other elements, and it's
no, I know, but okay, they did the right thing one time at the end of Raw.
Yep.
And the crowd went nuts, and they went home happy, and it was the right thing to do.
Yep. You know what? Can't complain about that. They recognized the issue, and they saw that Braun wasn't really getting over to their liking, and they got a guy that's getting over. Why not put the belt on him? That's my nice thing, I will say.
Well, folks, we are going to end now. That's where Zach is. This has been a really fun edition, Zach, and I hope that people go and listen to our reviews of the Mr. McMahon documentary, which we are doing separately and putting it out there and making sure that is covered. We'll be doing that. If people who have listened to this whole thing saying, why aren't you talking about Vince McMahon? We are putting that out separately, our review, to make sure that we get in all of what we need to say about that Netflix documentary on Mr. McMahon. So look for that on the This Is Wrestling page as well. And that's something that we'll have for you. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, we're going through the Netflix series, and obviously, you know, I'm sure same as you, Lee, been getting a bunch of messages and asked about the series and our thoughts on it. And so we figured with the demand that people want for this documentary series, that we are going to we're going to review each episode by episode. So stay tuned on the podcast feed for that first episode review, where we'll talk about everything that happened in the first episode. And each week we will go over an episode of that Mr. McMahon series, and obviously a lot to discuss, a lot to break down from that series. So hopefully people enjoy that. It'll be interesting to see where this series goes, but hopefully people will be able to tune into that. And of course, we will still have our episodes like this each and every week, where we break down everything going on in WWE and AEW, and even outside of that realm, if something big happens outside of that realm as well. So a lot to look forward to on this podcast feed.
Well, for Hornswoggle.
Oh, wait, hold on.
So for Zach McGibbon, I'm Zachary McGibbon.
Oof.
I'm Versage. Thanks for listening to another edition of This Is Wrestling.